All right, squad. So in the last one, we set up the models for Construction Manager app. In this one, we're going to set up authentication and authorization. So let's jump in. We're going to be looking at this gem Authentication Zero. So what this does is basically generates all the pieces that we need to roll our own auth. It's a little bit different to things like device or using something as third party like Kind that we've been using, or Auth Zero. It's just very simple, clean, and for a small app like this, this is what I'm going to run with. So let's jump in. First things first, we need to run bundle add Authentication Zero. So let's just grab that, chuck it in here, and then you'll see what it'll do. It'll, in our gem file, it'll add it right here. All right. So we got that in there. We also need bcrypt for our secure passwords. So do that, and then what the next step is, we're going to run Rails generate authentication. So this is the actual method that's going to do all the hard work. You'll see it does a few things. So we're going to have this problem here because we've created the users model previously. We created a migration. You can see it over here, which is this piece. So what I do is I'm just going to copy that, drop it into here, and also the user model, because that's going to collide as well. So what I'm going to do here is what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this migration. Actually also need to roll this back. So I'll show you how to do that. We can run Rails DB migrate down, and then we need a specific version. So the version is this number here. So we're going to grab that. I'm going to paste that there. We're going to run that. All right, you can see here we got our gem list bcrypt twice. I think it's because it gets added down here. Yep. So we can get rid of that. Sweet. All right. So now we've rolled this migration back. So it means the DB shouldn't have a users table in it anymore. Let me just refresh. You can see that that's dropped out. So there's no users table. Great. We can now delete this migration. All right, now we can run Rails generate auth again, authentication. All right, now we've got a collision here with the user model. We're going to overwrite that. So we're going to do capital Y, yes. Excellent. So you can see all the stuff it's done. It's created a few things, a few controllers, a few views. It's basically set up all our authentication pieces that we need. So it's a very cool gem, and I highly recommend you check it out. It's added in bcrypt again though, so let's just get rid of that. Now, if we scroll up, we should see it's done something to our user model. So it's added all of this, so it's quite different to what we had, but let's just add back in what we had, the has many organization users and organizations. So we'll just shove that right above here, has many sessions. You can see it's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not gonna get too deep into this. You can look into that at a later date. Otherwise this video will be way too long. But you can see it's also added a session model and also a current model. So in Rails, has this current attributes, which is basically a singleton for a request cycle. It gets set. So we're going to set current.user to the session, and then that'll be available throughout the whole request. So we can access that in our code. All right, so that's the user model set up. Let's just go into this migration now. And we're going to add back in we wanted the first name, last name, all that kind of stuff. So let's just chuck that back in. We will allow first name and last name to be null now. We can get rid of email. And there's the phone. I'm going to clean this up because I like it like that. Email is unique. Password digest. So that'll be the encrypted password. And that underscore digest is like a naming convention there. And there's if the user's actually been verified or not. All right, so we've created those two migrations now. And let's run Rails DB migrate. All right, do we need anything else? I don't think so. Let's go. Sweet. So there's the migrations run, refresh. Now if we go to users, we got user there. And now if we go to the other one was sessions, we got our session there. Awesome. All right, one thing that I'm not going to use is the test folder here because we want to use RSpec in the future. So we're just going to delete that, get rid of that, bang it away. See you later. Now let's run Rails S. Let's see what this thing's done. So if we jump into Construction Manager, you can now see a really cool style page, but it's actually got now the root goes into sign in. All right, so every route is now wrapped, if we look at application controller, with before action, which is authenticate. So if we have a session, it's going to set that. Otherwise, it's going to redirect us to the sign-in path. And you can see here, it's redirected us there. And we've got a 302. So we try to go to home controller index, and it said, no, can't go there, you're not logged in. So it sent us here. Awesome. So it's already implemented and wrapped all our things and made them secure. So now we can see, well, we can't sign in, but let's sign up. Got to sign up here. So we go ken@email.com, sign up. There we go. Now we're logged in. All right. So now we're ready to go. You can see we've got our sessions. So every time we log in, we get that there. And we can change our password and change our email address. All of that's just implemented straight out of the gate. And it's all straight code. So you can see it, everything that it's done here in the user model. So it generates everything that we need. And now we have full control of this. So it's not hidden behind a gem. So the next piece of the puzzle is the authorization piece, which is where we decide what resources a user has access to. So let's jump into that. So the first thing that I would like to implement here is we need to have different roles. So a user could be an admin. So that would be like us that owns the application. You could be a builder or an organization. And then you can also be just a general user or a client. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to say Rails G model, and I actually want to generate a role model. I like to store the roles in the DB. So we're going to see here now, we're going to have roles is migration here. I'm going to say the first one is string, and it's a title. And then we're going to have t.string, and that's going to be the key. I like to keep the key lowercase and underscored, and then the title, so that's the friendly title that someone would see. We don't need a description. That's that. We're going to run Rails DB migrate. Send that. Actually, we need to roll back, sorry, before we do that. So before we migrate, we want to actually create in the same, we actually want another migration here. We want to add the role ID to the user. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go Rails G migration, add role to user. All right, so in here, we're going to say add column to users, and it's going to be called, we could do add reference actually. We could do add reference to users role. It can be null. Can it be null? No, we always need a role. All right, so that's going to be the role. Let's run Rails DB migrate here. It's not going to let us. So let's just go null true. It's not going to let us be null because we've already got users in there. So let's just send that. There we go. Cool. So now we have a role ID on the user. So let's just see that. Role ID right there, role ID. And then we have roles with nothing. So what I would do here is I'd seed, right? So create roles, that's it. So role, find or create by. So realistically, we're going to have something like roles equals, and it's an array, admin, and then we're going to have organization owner. We're going to have organization member. You know what? We could just say organization. We're going to be able to find out a lot of this stuff. I think for now, let's just have admin. And then we're going to just go roles.each do role. And we're going to say role.find or create by key role key. So if it doesn't find it, we're going to say role.title is role title. All right. And then let's just see if this works. We can go Rails DB seed, go in here, there we go. So we've got administrator, admin. But yeah, realistically, I'd probably call that admin, not administrator. And then we could just rename that admin, change. 6, so that's admin. And then I guess the other role that we could have is just user. Seed that again, there we go. We've got admin and user roles. That makes sense for now. All right, sweet. So let's go here. When we first create our registration, we want to create a new user. And we also want to make sure that the user, when we create this, the only thing that we can do here is user.role is always going to be role.find by key user. You can't create an admin account like this. All right, so we lock that down. So you can only create users. Now, I want to just quickly update our cell. So I'm going to just go user Rails C. I'm going to go user.first, and that's me. And then I'm going to say user dot first dot update role is role dot find by key admin. What are you saying? It doesn't know role. Okay, we need to assign that. So we go here, user belongs to role. What am I doing? There we go. Sorry, just stuffing up my things. So there we've updated the users. We've set the role ID to 1 because that's the role of admin. All right, so now we know the user. So if we go user.first.role, we now know that that's admin role. All right, excellent. So what we want to do now is I want to sign up a new user. Whoops, we need to Rails S. Let's go into login. We want to log out here, and let's sign up, and we're going to create a new one. So we're going to say it's going to be builder@email.com. All right, sign up. Okay, so we just signed up a new builder. You can see here it's actually queued in an email. This is to confirm. So once the user registers, they get a special link that they can use to verify their email. So that's great. So it's all built in. So very, very handy. So if we look here, so now if we look in here, we can actually see that we have builder@email.com, and it was automatically assigned to role 2. So that's great. So if I open a new tab here and just run Rails C and go user equals user.find, and we're talking about ID 3, user.role is user. Perfect. So the builder is automatically assigned there. Now what we will need to do in the future is have some sort of way where you can sign up as a builder or an organization, I should say. But anyway, for now, we'll just leave it like that. I almost actually think we should add another role here. Let's go to seeds. I want to create another role called organization user, because that way we can tell who's who. So if we're going to go Rails DB seed, all right, and then again Rails C user.find3, who is that? User.email. All right, so we're going to say user.role is equal to role.find by key organization. The reason I like using keys for like things like roles is it just makes it easier to look up. If you ever change your mind on like the name, you don't have to break all your business logic inside your app because you've created a hard key there. So if we were like, oh no, it's not called organization user on the title, we wanted to call it something else, like organization member, you don't have to worry about fixing your whole app. So let's just save that user. Cool. So now if we look at that user in the DB, role ID 3. Awesome. Okay. So what we want to do now is we actually want to assign that organization, that user to an organization. So we're going to say organization's user.create. User is going to be user, and then organization is organization 1. All right. Now if we go into organizations users, not project items, there, you can see it, we've got it there. All right. We've created the roles now. Now what we want to do is we want to actually be able to authorize records. All right. So I like to use a gem called Pundit to do that. So I'll jump in and show you how to install that one. So to do authorization, I like to use the gem called Pundit. Very minimal, but I like that about it. It doesn't have heaps of things to learn. So all we're going to do here is we're going to just grab bundle add Pundit. All right, Pundit. There we go. Now if we jump into the gem file, you can see it here, Pundit. Okay. All right, so next we just need to run Rails G Pundit install. And that's going to do its thing. So it's created a new app policy for us. If we can now go into here. So this is where policies are where we store all our logic for our models. So each model, so imagine a project model will have a project policy, and then each route you can create rules. So depending on the user type, you can allow certain things. So perhaps you only allow organizations to be created by an admin. So you'd say user.role equals admin, and that would allow us to create. It's very, very simple, but very powerful. Okay. So the first thing here is inside of our application controller, we want to include this Pundit authorization. So what this does is every time we run a controller method, it's going to make sure we have actually authorized that endpoint. It's just like a little catch for us to make sure we are actually authorizing every record. It's just great for security there. There is one thing here, because we're using this current dot. So what we do now is we look for something like current.user. With device, there's a method called current.user. So Pundit looks for that, and that's how it determines who's logged in. But we don't have that, so we need to create that. And we can actually say, all we can do here is actually go current.user, right? We're just going to create that method. And then Pundit will be able to find that for us. All right, so now that we've set up authorization in simplicity, we will create a new controller for projects. In Construction Manager now, we're going to go Rails G scaffold controller project. All right. So what we've done here is we've created now scaffolding for the controller. So this is one of those real cool pieces of Rails that we can do. We're going to get a new controller called projects controller with all the different routes, all done for us. Amazing. It's going to create our route in our routes file. So if we jump into that, you can see we've got projects here. Right, so let's just chuck that down here. So let's tidy this up. We're going to go, this is authentication there. That's the root. Right. Don't need that. That's just get the little up status. And we've got our projects here, right? So I like to just put that there like that. We've got a helper, and we've got our JBuilder views, which is if you want to render out JSON, okay? This is for an app. This is for more of an API, okay? So if we jump into our construction manager, now it's saying, hey, we haven't done authorization. Perfect, that's right, we have not. But if we just jump into projects here, it's going to do the same thing to us. And that's for, it's uninitialized constant. We probably just need to refresh this guy. Let's see. There we go. Cool. So we're now inside of our projects. So again, we really need to work on styling this project, but we're just trying to get the scaffolding together. You can now see here we've got a projects endpoint. We can view each project, and let's work through what that looks like. So let's close this. Let's go to our views. And what we're seeing is this partial here. So anything in the underscore is a partial in Rails. All it's doing is giving us an empty div with the ID of the project. But if we show the project name, let's see what that looks like. Project, oh, it's not name, it's title. It's still very yuck, but you can see what we've got here. We've got the first project. Okay, so this is actually not currently using the partial, but anyway, we can just change this here. So we're not using this. We can actually just grab this guy and chuck that. Oh, it is rendering. You know, it is rendering the project and then a link. Okay, so we can just get rid of the link. Yep, sorry, there it is. There we go. Okay, cool. Now what you can see here is we've actually got every project listed here, but remember we had in our DB, we want only the master projects to show up. So that's a simple fix. If we just jump into controllers, projects controller, go to the index, instead of all, we want to now only show where is master is true, right? When we're looking at the main list, that's all we want. There we go. So now we have this. You can actually see here that when we've scaffolded out, it created the form partial as well. So that's what we're actually seeing right here. So we can work on that. And let's see, so this is the errors, and this is the submit. And then we can work on creating the inputs and all of those other things as well. So that's there. But what we want to do now is we only want to show projects that the user actually belongs to, or the organization. So that's where, this is where the policies come into play. All right, so let's do this. We're going to go into here and we're going to look for generator, and we are going to Rails G Pundit policy, and it's going to be for our project. So it's created the app policies project for us. So we now jump in here. So these are this is the scope now. All right. This is the base. So it inherits from application policy. So it's going to inherit all of these methods. Okay. And then from here, we're going to grab, we're now going to say this. So def resolve all. So this is scope all. So this is anything that comes through is permitted, but we don't want that. So we want to say if user dot admin else end. So if a user is an admin, we show them all. We need to add this method now to the user model. So we're going to go here, user, and then we're going to say down here, we're going to sef admin. And then we're going to say user.role.key is equal to admin. And then we can create these for all these other ones as well. The other ones are going to be false anyway. So we can just say here, right? So let's try that out in our Rails console. So we're going to say user equals user.first, user.admin, user.role. Maybe that user doesn't have a role yet. So we need to just, that's something to be careful of. So let's just put safeties in there. Role for nil. Oh, sorry. What a knob. These are supposed to be self because they're in the user model. There we go. So that user is an admin. Is that user an organization user? False. All right. Sweet. So we've got that logic set up now. So we can now use that in here. So now we're going to say else if user.organization user. So if you're an organization user, what projects are you allowed to see? Well, firstly, we're going to use the scope. And then we're going to say for a project, we are joining on, a user can access a project if they are a member of the organization that owns the project, right? So we're going to need to go projects.joins organizations projects. Then we're going to have to join organizations users and find that the ID is right there. So what does that look like? So you know what I actually like to do? I like to do this in here. This makes it a little bit easier. So we're going to say projects equals, now we're going to say projects dot joins organizations projects, and then we're just checking that these things are working. I like to do this. So inner joining there, and then we're going to say joins organizations users, and this one we probably need to go, I'm going to go left join organizations users on organizations users dot organization ID is equal to organizations projects dot organization ID, right? So we, what are you saying? Oh, wow, what's going on here? Operator does not exist. Big int is equal to big int. Yep, that's just me again. So we don't use double equals in SQL, single equals, there we go. All right, so we're joining through. We're not actually doing anything with those joins yet. So now that we have those joins, we're going to say dot where organizations users, and then open it up like this. And we're going to look for user ID is equal to a user ID. So for instance, let's say the user ID was 4. We will get no results, right? No results. Now, if the user ID is 1, we get this one. Why is that working? Because that's just basic SQL. When we're doing organizations users, user ID 3 and user ID 1 are members of organization 1, and organizations has one project. All right? Sweet. So now that we've built that, I like to just grab it, and I like to chuck it in here. That's why I like Rails consoles, because you can kind of like debug on the fly. Makes it a lot easier to figure out what you're going wrong. Now, instead of user ID is 1, obviously that's hard coded, we're going to say user, okay? Now we have a scope, all right? So on the project policy, if we jump in here, go to projects, we are just calling this directly, all right? We are now going to wrap this with policy scope, and we're going to scope project, and then from there we're going to call where is masters true, because that's kind of unique to this endpoint. Okay, so now let's see what happens with that. So we need to run Rails S, and then go back here to our projects, and you can see here we're getting the one project. Here's our query. You can see it there. It's doing all the inner join and stuff. Now let's just do something just to make sure this actually works and we're not fibbing. If we change this organization projects and we say, okay, well, this project actually belongs to organization 2. So let's create a new organization. Organization.create title builder number 2. All right. And let's just change that to 2. Now if we refresh this page, it's gone. Because that project now belongs to organization 2, not organization 1. Chuck that back. There it is. Okay, so that's basic policy scoping with Pundit. That's quite powerful as well. So that's scoping. So scoping is like shrinking down the amount of records that you want someone to see. So this is for apps that have multiple tenants. So like organizations would have different records and you don't want everyone to see everything. That's where we're using policy scoping. The next piece here is we actually want to go into the show route. So if we go into this project here, you can see the show route done. It's very small, but it's project/1 right here. So we can now see this, all right? That's because at the moment, everyone can see every record. Let's do here. So inside of project policy, let's go def show. So it's like you're asking a question here. Can you show? Now, we want to add to this application policy. I'm just going to add a little helper called admin. And this is going to be user.admin, right? I'm going to add that there. So can you show a record? If you're admin, sure, you can. Otherwise, you are an owner. So we're going to say here, def project owner. Okay, so what does that look like? So firstly, the user must be an organization user. Okay, and what's this doing for us? This is interesting. So user.organizations projects, that's not even real. So let's just get rid of this. Okay, so let's just think about the logic. So realistically, you need to be an organization user firstly to even be the owner. That makes sense. Then you want to make sure that your organization owns that project, right? So what does that look like? So we're going to say, and this will be resource record. So record dot, let's have a look at how we've set this up. Right, so we're going to, first thing is going to be user. Let's find the user who is the builder. So this one. So it's user equals user.find3. Okay, so this is the builder one, and then if we go into organization users, the builder belongs to organization 1. So if we go user.organizations, yes, they belong to Ken build, which is ID 1. So user.organizations dot, can we do organization IDs? No. So here, we can actually get all the user organizations IDs, right? So that's going to return an array of 1. Okay? So we can say user.organization IDs dot include. So now we're going to try and find the array, the ID of this project. So let's go project equals project.find1. We're going to go project.organization All right, so there's an array in there as well. So now what we need to do is we need to see, so both of these arrays include 1. So we need to find if there is an intersection, because these can be multiple. Okay, so what we can do here, and hopefully this is right, just quickly, so we can do an intersection. So we're going to find what IDs exist in both arrays. So this is what it looks like here. So if we have user organization IDs of an array of 1 and project organization IDs of an array of 1, we're going to get an intersection of 1. I've done this here as an example. If we have an array of 2 and 3, and those could be organization IDs and the project IDs as 1, you get an empty array. So we would need to check there is some sort of value in here. If there's an overlap, that means that that user exists in both of those. So let's do that. Let's grab that. And then we can actually just flop that out here. And this is called record. Okay, so if you're an organization user and your organization IDs, that we need to actually just say here. So dot present, and if you do it on an empty array, it's false, okay? So we just need to do that, dot present. All right, so now we have a project owner. Now we can say, you can see this record if you're an admin or if you're a project owner, okay? Save that out. Let's see if this works. Okay, I've done something that could be working, but here we need to go authorize project. There we go. Cool. So we are not authorized to show this project because we are not part of the organization that owns it. If we switch this back to 1, we can now see it. Cool, so that is basic authorization with Pundit, and we've also got our authentication handled by that Authentication Zero generator, which is a beauty. So reasonably straightforward. I did fumble across a few things because I am doing this speed run and live, but what you can see is the main pieces of the puzzle are we generate authentication, which gave us these methods. We then installed Pundit, and from there we set up one policy for project, which has a scope, which restricts how many records we can see. And then we also have these ones that for each controller endpoint. And these can actually be anything, so you can check, that doesn't have to match a controller endpoint, but it is kind of good practice. It just makes it simpler to manage. And then what you can do is you could extract this if you notice that you use this method a lot, but it's pretty simple. And then also with the Rails scaffolding, we were quickly able to show how this all works. We can like edit this project, back to projects. So we've got a real basic scaffolding there that we can work from now. So I think in the next one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some styling because this is getting a bit hard to even visualize what's going on, and we'll work on that. So catch you on the next one.